The Manchester Derby is the headline fixture for Premier League game week 10. Guys, we are here with the Tereak Talks Premier League preview show where we'll look ahead to all of the games this weekend. We'll be doing a special focus on that Manchester Derby, which seems like a huge game for Erik ten Hag, who has been on a good run of form. But with Pep Guardiola off of the back of his last run of poor form, it will be a massive game for them as well into the title race. But guys, we're going to look ahead to that and every other fixture that you can see on the thumbnail in this Premier League preview show. So people, get your popcorn ready, get your predictions ready as we get into the video. Wagwan, everyone. I hope you're keeping well and welcome back to Tereak Talks, guys. It has been a while. It's been a week and I haven't been putting up content as consistently as I'd like. And the big issue was for this week was I wasn't feeling too great. I weren't feeling too well. Then we had some technical difficulties as well in the background, but I am here. And yes, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to bring you the watch-alongs for the Champions League as promised, but I am here feeling better. And a big reason why and I'm recording this, and you may have just clocked on that this is pre-recorded, is because I wasn't feeling too great and I wasn't sure if I may need to do some cuts during this. So maybe if you see any jumps in this, then yeah, you'll know that I would have had to do some cuts or some edits and really test out my editorial skills, as I'm not really used to that. As what I usually do on this channel, and what you guys are familiar with, who are long-time subscribers and viewers of the channel, is that we do plenty of live streams. And the Premier League preview show usually has that live element, and I will be missing that today. But guys, I want to ask for your feedback. Do you prefer this? Let me know towards the end, of course, in the comments. You'll be able to comment on this straight away and get your predictions in for the Predictions League as well. But yeah, let me know your feedback, because I really want to try and enhance things on the channel. I'm going to try and add more recorded elements, of course. And do you prefer the Premier League preview show to be a pre-record or live stream? Let me know, because yeah, I want to add more things to the channel, and pre-record will allow me to, do things on the fly and if to react to some breaking news a little bit better. And yeah, so not always have to set up things in a live stream element. It's sometimes a bit quicker to set up a pre-record. Sometimes when you edit it takes a bit longer. So there is pros and cons to live streams, but let me know which ones do you prefer as I waffle on right at the beginning here. But yes, people, this is the Premier League preview show, and what we do on this channel is when we look ahead to those fixtures, we do have a predictions league where I will provide you an update on that at the end of the video, and so make sure you do stay around for that. But if you're brand new, you would like to enter the Predictions League, and you're thinking, oh, it's too late. We're 10 games in. We're 10 games into the Premier League season. Is there any point in me doing it? Yes, there is, because we will be doing monthly giveaways. We are going to be doing our first monthly giveaway for prizes for those who get the most points in a month. So if you've just come in and you've just come to the channel, don't you worry, get your predictions in there. There's still plenty of opportunity, and if you're very good at predicting, you can make your way up that table very fast. Just ask some people like Shay, and I'll show you how he's done. And he entered his predictions very late on into the season, and a lot of people have missed weeks, due to time and those things as well. So there's always plenty of time to catch up on the overall Predictions League, where there'll be multiple giveaways for that as well, but multiple smaller giveaways for the predictor of the month, and that goes to the person who predicts the most in that month. But just to let you know how the predictions work, you will have to leave your predictions into the comment section for them to be submitted. If you've not already seen on the community post, because yeah, this is going to be going out before an hour before the Spurs game is alive. So yes, I did make a community post to give you guys a bit more time if you have been kept up to date with the channel. If not, don't worry. If you can get this in within beforehand, or if you just give that game a miss, that's fine. If it's after the fixture or during the game, then yeah, you can certainly enter your predictions for the others. You won't be closed off like the Fantasy Premier League, so there is opportunity to get the other 9 Premier League fixtures in as well. So just letting you know, comment section, get your predictions in there. 3 points for correct score. So, for example, Spurs game, if Spurs win 3-0 and you predict a 3-0 win, you get 3 points. But if Spurs win 3-0 and you predict 2-1 or 1-0 Spurs, then you will get 1 point for the correct results. And if it ends in a draw and you predicted a Spurs win, then you get 0 points and vice versa there. If you do have any questions, let me know in the comment section. I'll help. I would like to provide more help on that. Not sure if I've been clear with it, but yeah, definitely leave your predictions in there. It's a bit of fun as well, so it's not really it can be taken seriously. There are people that do take it seriously, and I understand, because I'm someone who's very competitive themselves, and I'm not too happy with my position in the table, but you'll get to see that towards the end here too. But guys, make sure you do leave a like on the video as we're about to enter for the first game. But before I do the first game, let me just tell you, just a reminder, there is a community post, and I did leave my prediction in that post. So if you I've seen a lot of you have put your predictions in there, so thank you for doing so. I did predict a 2-1 Tottenham win. We're not going to be delving deep into this because, yeah, the game is already underway. Probably you've already seen it by the time you're watching this video, or you might be seeing it whilst if you're watching it live during the game. But yeah, it'll be old news. So let's go into the headline fixture, which is the Manchester derby, and this one seems like there's a bit more pressure on the home side, given their slow start to the season, their struggles in this Premier League. Man United, though, of late, they have won their last 2 games in the Premier League, picking up a win against Brentford just before the international break, and their last game against Sheffield United away from home at Bramall Lane, which were both 2-1 victories. Goals from Scott McTominay, scored 3 in the past 2 games, and a goal from Diogo Dalot as well to give them the win. But Manchester United also played in midweek against Copenhagen, and we saw Onana make that big save. And a lot of United fans are feeling like this could potentially be the turning point for his Man United career, and he's after a poor start for him and the club, who do sit in 8th position with just 15 points. So it's a bit difficult really to look at the table at this early stage of the season. It's beginning to take shape, but things can still change very quickly, as we're still quite at the beginning. But we definitely know that Man United haven't had a great start. And Manchester City, who are still in and around the top of the league, 2 points off Spurs as this is being recorded. But if Spurs go and win, then it will be 5 points behind Spurs. Yeah, 5. Sorry, great quick maths right there. There'll be 5 points behind Spurs potentially going into this game as well. So it'll make it interesting. There's a bit more pressure, but we know with Manchester City, they tend to start slow within a season, and they know how to sort themselves out. Pep Guardiola tends to. But this season feels a little bit different, with Man City not having that sort of squad depth that they had before, with players who rely like Ilkay Gundogan, Riyad Mahrez. Those have been mentioned, that have left in the summer plenty of times, and they're trying to bed in new players like Mateo Kovacic, Mateus Nunes, and Jeremy Doku. Some have started better than others. In Jeremy Doku, he's been on fire and he's looked a real threat, and Manchester City fans have taken him to their hearts very quickly with his electric performances. But then some others like Mateus Nunes, who are starting to slowly pick up more games, and Kovacic, who's been hot and cold as well. So yeah, as Man City are going through a sort of transition there, whilst having a few injuries, key players like Kevin De Bruyne being out. And when Man City did lose those 3 games in English domestic cup competitions against Newcastle, Wolves, and Arsenal, they were without their talisman, really, and probably their most important player in Rodri, who will be available for this game as we are recording, and that makes it a more strong Manchester City team, and a team that we're used to seeing and that we've seen regularly, with their best side available, barring Kevin De Bruyne, of course. However, Manuel Akanji does miss the game for the citizens, but that's, again, when you've got the likes of Ruben Dias, John Stones is back, Carl Walker, new signing Josko Vardio, Nathan Ake, they are sorted in that area with a plethora of options defensively. And you'd say that is Manchester City's strongest area. And it's kind of crazy to say when they've got a striker who's been breaking all sorts of records with Erling Haaland. but they have struggled this season to get into their flow, and missing Kevin De Bruyne, of course, is a big key factor in that. But I also think that getting in players and trying to bed them into the new system, with how Pep Guardiola is and how strict and stringent he is with his philosophy. And it does take players a season to really understand what he wants from them. And we've kind of seen that kind of transition in that midfield a little bit take a little bit of a hit on them. Julian Alvarez, who's been fantastic and arguably Manchester City's player of the season so far, he's now really settled into the system. Wasn't given too many opportunities last year, but when he did come in, in those moments he did shine. But he's given a lot more responsibility, and he seems to have taken it by the scruff of the neck. And now he's really kicking on, and we're seeing the potential, him starting to realize that potential in this early stage of the season. And let's be real, because he's one of Manchester City's player of the seasons, then he's going to be one of the best players in the Premier League as well, as they are the best team currently, who are not sitting top, but you'd still say the favourites for most people to win the title. But that's enough on Manchester City there, because with Manchester United's woes and their struggles, even against Copenhagen, in that first 45 minutes, I wasn't impressed with that performance. Second half was better, and they started to create more chances. New signing Rasmus Højlund is probably in one of their shining lights in a dark start, really, for Erik Ten Hag's boys. But I think he's shown some promise, and his pace and directness and his fearlessness that he seems to show, and what a lot of young players do at that age, it could be a problem, a thorn in Manchester City side, as we do see Man City play a high line. They have let up a few chances this season, although I've said their defense is probably their strongest area of the team. We haven't kind of seen them being performing at their best in terms of the defense. So maybe it could take a little bit more for a little more gelling with the other players, and have that real settled back line in front of them. Missing John Stones, Ruben Dias in a couple of games, and those are the two real stalwarts at the back there for Manchester City. So yes, potentially Rasmus Højlund could cause some problems there, but Manchester United do have a few injury issues of their own at the back, and no Lisandro Martinez, no Aaron Wan-Bissaka, which is the good news on that is he could return very soon, within the next 10 days. Erik Ten Hag did say no Tyrone Malacia and no Luke Shaw as well. So Man United, they are injury stricken, especially at the back. And Manchester United's Casemiro, who is, if the Man United are ever to get anything from this game, you would think that Casemiro would have a key role to play in providing that defensive stability in that midfield with his experience, his quality that he hasn't shown this season. It looks like he has regressed, but maybe that's because of whatever your reasons are for that. I'd be interested to hear in the comments as well if you are a United fan. And it's always interesting when you talk about their midfield dilemma, because Casemiro seems to have dropped physically, especially, which has impacted on his ability and picking up. He always picks up them yellow cards and suspensions, but he is to face a late fitness test to see if he is going to be available for this one here. And for Man United, they will be preying on him to be fit and available. Otherwise, you'll be looking at a midfield of Sofian Amrabat and Scott McTominay. Yes, Scott McTominay has been brilliant in the last couple of games for them, but he's also shown his defensive weaknesses by giving 2 penalties away. A lot of Man United fans have suggested that maybe Scott McTominay has been misprofiled by the likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, by Erik Ten Hag, and someone that you'd rather have in the attacking areas with his instincts attacking. He used to be a striker going through the academy with his big physical frame. He's an aerial threat in the box. He's got a real clean strike to him. But when he is in and around that midfield, he does look a little bit lost positionally. He's not as aware defensively. He's not. But what he does provide in these sort of games is that physicality, the intensity in that midfield, and he will give you that passion and desire that is very much maligned a lot now, but in there. But in these sort of type of games, these derby games, you really need people that kind of understand what's going to be important. So I'm sure he will play some part, whether Casemiro is fit or not. Amrabat and I'm sure he will start in the middle. But it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts, guys, on who do you think is going to play for Manchester United. Will Mason Mount get a start? Will Anthony continue on the right? Højlund and Rashford. I've been hearing calls for Rashford to be dropped after his poor start to the season. Bruno Fernandes hasn't exactly set the world on fire as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to happen. But before I give my prediction, I just want to say the importance of this game for Erik ten Hag and what his objective is. A win will be massive, and a win could kickstart their season and really give them that confidence and belief to go on to how they did in their home games last year. They had their first home game against Brighton, which they lost last season, but after that they didn't lose a game at all at Old Trafford, and they beat Manchester City, the treble winners, in fortuitous fashion, but they did make Old Trafford into a fortress in their first season under Erik ten Hag. And this game, if they do grab a win, it could potentially, and it's hard to kind of project that because in a Premier League season, things change on a week to week basis, but it will be massive for him. A defeat is what it's expected, what the bookies have gone for, which I'm sure most of you guys have gone for as well. But a win doesn't seem as far-fetched. If Man United are to try and get this, we know they're going to have to set up defensively and hit them on the counter-attack. I feel like their best players are suited for that. Bruno likes to hit balls into big spaces, with how he likes to play the ball direct and in behind, for the likes of Rashford and Rasmus Højlund with their speed, pace, and ability to penetrate the defense of Manchester City. It will make an interesting fixture for that, and they will hold their Man United do hold a threat to Man City. We have seen, even in games when Man City have been the better at Old Trafford, games tend to be a little bit tighter in here. So apart from the 6-1 that we experienced, and I remember towards the end days of Ollie, the 2-0. That was a 2-0 battering. But even then, the scoreline was quite low. But Man City, they do have the form. They do have the quality. They are the favourites for this one. But if Man City win and they get a convincing victory, I think that piles the pressure on Erik ten Hag for sure, because this will be another fixture against a big team where they would have been embarrassed. Another fixture under Erik ten Hag, they got embarrassed against Brentford last year, against Manchester City in a 6-3, against Liverpool, of course. They lost to Arsenal this season. They lost to Spurs. And those weren't embarrassments of defeats, but they're defeats nonetheless. And for a club the size of Manchester United, really, they've not been anywhere near the level that the fans aspire to be at, what their fans are used to with life under Alex Ferguson. They probably are a bit more used to life now, where they are competing for a Champions League spot and entering these games as the underdog, which shouldn't really be the case for Man United. And if Erik ten Hag is to get kind of continue, it feels like the trust of Man United fans is in a fine balance at the moment. And yeah, I've had my concerns with Erik ten Hag, and it's not really to do with him tactically. It's more to do with his man management skills. And I think he could potentially lose the dressing room. That's one thing that I've thought. And I still think that could be a possibility. Yes, they still, at this current moment in time, it looks like they are playing for him. But the players aren't really seeming to play with that belief and that freedom that they kind of showed at home, especially in the transition. And they haven't really shown a style of play that looks like it's going to be sustainable for a long term to get Man United back to their best. But of course, they have had a lot of injuries, just so many other teams as well, by the way. But my prediction for this game is I have gone for a Manchester City 2-0 win. I do think the first goal is going to be vital. If Man United can get the first goal, and Old Trafford will be rocking. It is Derby Day. If Man United get the first goal, they could go on and get a result in this fixture. But if Manchester City do, doesn't always spell that it's going to be a Manchester City win, because they got the first goal last year with Jack Grealish scoring, and Man United were able to come back. But yeah, if they are able to score early in the game, Man City, and if they were able to grab another one, then it is such the mood at Old Trafford is is on a tightrope at the moment. It is finely balanced with there, and it could tip either way. It could erupt into anger and disappointment and apathy with a lot of fans, or it could erupt into what we saw towards the end of the game against FC Copenhagen. But I do think Manchester City will win by 2 goals to 0. I just think they've got too much for the attack, and Man United's injuries at the back. They won't be able to hold out the likes of Erling Haaland, Julian Alvarez, Jeremy Doku, Phil Foden if he gets a start, and even Rodri, who's chipped in with a few goals this season and attacking contributions as well, as he's really really showing that he is the best defensive midfielder in the world currently, and a clutch player who scores in those big games and big moments for City as well. So I've gone for a 2-0 Man City win. Don't forget, leave your predictions into the comment section with all of the other games in here as well. So let's go into the next fixture. And yeah, we already spoke about Crystal Palace versus Tottenham. So the next one is Arsenal against Sheffield United. 3:00 kickoff at the Emirates Stadium. And I didn't do a match reaction to the Chelsea game or the Sevilla game. But the Chelsea game, just quickly, poor performance. We were fortunate in a way to get, definitely fortunate to get a draw in that game, which it looked like for the majority of it, for at least 75 minutes, that it was going to be a comfortable Chelsea win. But the fact that Arsenal showed that character, that fight, and that ability to hang on in there as well, it is important. And if Arsenal are to be champions or reach the levels that many fans and the players and the coaches aspire to, you need to show that level of character. We've seen that a lot from Man United over the years. Chelsea themselves and their title winning teams, in games they looked like they were getting battered and they were dead and buried, but came and rose and showed that they do have that mentality, that fighting spirit. And I saw that fighting spirit in midweek against Sevilla. Gabriel Jesus, who was phenomenal, and that's the best performance I've seen Gabriel Jesus having an Arsenal shirt since his injury that he sustained last year in the World Cup. But we do have bad news. He is not going to be fit and available for this one, which is gutting, because Arsenal, we haven't seen our best front three apart from that Chelsea game, and we couldn't get any of them really involved in the game, especially Saka and Jesus. Chelsea did a good job defensively, and our midfield wasn't able to transition the ball into them a lot. So it's a shame that we're not going to see Gabriel Jesus, Saka, and Martinelli, who held our hopes and dreams last season and carried our beliefs and going forward and brought that excitement and why we felt that something special was going to happen last season. And he will be out, as well as Thomas Partey. He picked up another injury in training. Arteta said it was the last kick of the training session, and it was very unfortunate. But it feels like it's a bit too consistent now for Partey to really class it as fortune. He has had his physical issues in his 3 years or so at the Emirates. And yeah, it's a shame, but with something that we're aware of now as Arsenal fans, that we can't rely on him to be fit and available, unfortunately. And the best that we can hope for Thomas Partey is that we can get him for the last remaining fixtures, and a fit and firing Partey who's at the best of his ability, kind of what we saw for the majority of last season when he was available, up until the end, where it seemed like him and a lot of other Arsenal players just ran out of juice and gas as well. But no Thomas Partey, no Gabriel Jesus, and no Urian Timber. Shouldn't be a problem facing Sheffield United. I'm thinking projecting more long term and more to do with in terms of our performances and why we haven't seen Arsenal at their peak and at their brilliant best. But against Sheffield United, who do have an injury list that I'm here crying wolf about Arsenal's. But when it comes to the Sheffield United's, they have an extensive one. 10 players out. Yeah, Sheffield United could be missing up to 10 players through injury. Although George Baldock has resumed his training, Alan McBurney is likely to miss out. he was a big threat in his opening 20 minutes against Man United last week, but picked up that groin injury that forced him off in that fixture. And yeah, one of their key players, if they were to stay up, or who holds their hopes of staying up in the Premier League, Paul Heckingbottom, who are sitting bottom of the league with 1 point. So meaning they've had one draw and the rest of them have been defeats. So 8 defeats in 9 games. And Arsenal facing bottom of the league. You think it should be a routine win. But I will say, let's not take things for granted, Arsenal fans, because last season we couldn't beat Southampton in a single game. And they finished bottom. I'm laughing now. I was crying last season, but the fact that we didn't beat them away from home earlier in the season, grabbed the 1-1 draw there, and then grabbed that 3-3 draw in that ridiculous game on that Friday night at the end of last season, where really our title hopes dissipated from there. But the final nail in the coffin was against Manchester City. That was the game before Man City. So yeah, this one shouldn't be taken lightly, but Arsenal definitely should be winning this if they are to have title aspirations once again. And if Arsenal don't win this game, I think that really puts them into jeopardy. Yes, it's very early in the season. We saw Man City drop quite a few points at this stage, but I think if you give Manchester City a lead at any point, Arsenal, if whoever's going to win the league, kind of needs to be at least 3 points in and around Man City, and they shouldn't really get that gap extended to more than a game, I'd say. Even though it is early into the season, Arsenal have beaten Man City. You think that would give them that confidence and that boost to go on? We haven't seen a high level of performance all season. You know, like players of like Martin Odegaard hasn't found his form, and I don't think he's had a good season. And Arteta mentioned it in the press conference as well, that we haven't had the best out of him and all the attacking players. Even though Saka's could break a record with having like 9 goal involvements in 10 games if he gets a goal or assist this weekend, he hasn't been at his brilliant best. Martinelli, he's had a stop and start, and the same with Saka's, that they both had injuries as well to their hamstrings. Gabriel Jesus didn't start the season, came in, started to find a bit of form, has had to drop back out now. So we've had to chop and change a lot in our attack, which hasn't allowed us to be performing at our best. My expectation for Arsenal is just to keep rolling on. I'm not really too bothered about performances at this stage. I will. My focus has shifted. Yes, we have a favourable run of fixtures, barring the Newcastle game up until the international break. But my focus has completely shifted now. I just want to keep grabbing wins, stay in there, and as long as we can perform at our best towards the end of the season, February that's when I'm looking at performances and wins. That's when we need to keep going, because the performances will show if we are sustainable. We saw our performances really peak at this stage of the season. Let's just keep grabbing wins. Let Tottenham take the headlines. Let Liverpool, who have been fantastic going forward and probably one of the most exciting teams in this league to watch, let them take the plaudits and be the entertainers. I want to be the winners at the end of it. And Manchester City, they ploughed through. They managed to stay on Arsenal's tails close enough to capitalize when Arsenal capitulated. When the pressure was really showing and we folded, they kicked on and they were on an unbelievable run of games, and they looked inevitable. They weren't invincible, but they looked inevitable for that treble. And that's where I want Arsenal to be, at their peak, at their sharpest, have our most important players available then. So yes, if they do have a little injury now, move them out to the side. We should we should now have the squad depth to compete and win a majority of our games. So let's do it. Save them for the bigger fixtures like a Newcastle away or Liverpool, which will probably, well, we still got Aston Villa. There's a lot of difficult teams to play in this league. But yeah, just keep going, keep plowing through. I'm not really focused on the performances. I want to get wins. Performances will be a bonus and they'll give us and instill more confidence into the fan base. But I just want to be there towards the end of the season. And then we can really judge Arsenal's performances in April, in May, and how they've really performed throughout the season. But let's get in there and let's grab a win. I've gone for A 3-0 win for Arsenal. I think that's quite generous. I think that's the maximum that we will score in this game, by the way, because Sheffield United, barring the 8-0 against Newcastle, they do defend quite well and keep games tight. They have done against Man City, with losing that game by 2-1. Tottenham 2-1 in the 100th minute. Tottenham had to grab that winner. Man United was 2-1 as well. So they do keep games quite tight. And Arsenal, I think I'm a bit brave going for a 3-0 victory here because our attack hasn't been fluid at its brilliant best. As Arteta mentioned, as I've mentioned, as many Arsenal fans have mentioned at the start of the season, our midfield, we don't seem to struck that balance in terms of going forward in the attack. But defensively, again, that's what Arsenal have looked at their best at times in the majority when David Raya's not making mistakes as well. But yeah, I will be doing a match reaction to this on Saturday evening. So guys, make sure you do tune in for that. That will definitely be returning. I'm back to my brilliant best. This is the best that you'll get Tereak Talks. But yeah, I've gone for a 3-0 Arsenal win. I expect Eddie Nketiah to start. I wouldn't start Eddie Nketiah for this fixture, but I'll talk more about those things into Arsenal heavy tomorrow post game, and I'm sure there will be a plenty of talking points as well for Arsenal fans to dig into. I've just given you my next prediction, and that is Liverpool versus Nottingham Forest. I did show it. Let me bring it up right here. I didn't mean to, but Liverpool do take on Nottingham Forest, and can I just say for Liverpool, I think they have been, defensively, they have their woes and their weaknesses, especially through the midfield. I give Van Dijk, Matip, Konate, whoever is playing at the back, a lot of work to do defensively. But going forward, my word, they are scintillating. Szoboszlai, Gravenberch have been two midfield signings that have been excellent for Jurgen Klopp. The front line, that's the best front line in the Premier League. In terms of the quality, the depth, I'm saying it now. Liverpool are scary, with their attack. And Mo Salah, it seems to be on another level again this season. And the reason I say another level is not really in terms of the goals, but the creativity. He scored with his right foot against Toulouse, and yes, he's Toulouse and etc. But I've seen my team not score and not look convincing in the Europa League last year, and we came second. So yeah, you can't take those things for granted. But Liverpool do look sharp. Darwin Nunez, he missed that chance, but he did all of the work before that was scintillating stuff. It was quality. They've got the likes of Gakpo, Diogo Jota, who is a very streaky player, but he looked on fire yesterday. The creativity of Trent Alexander-Arnold in there as well. Liverpool looks scary going forward. I will admit that here. And I do think that they will win this game, as you've seen already, as I kind of brought this up earlier against Nottingham Forest. Just some injury news, of course, no Andy Robertson, who had surgery on his shoulder. There will be without Curtis Jones, who serves his final game of his 3-match suspension. No Bacetić, no Dolk, and no Thiago as well, but they're still going to have that scintillating attack, and I've said scintillating 3 times now. But yeah, with Nottingham Forest, I do think they can grab a goal. Of course, they do have players going forward. They have a lot of players in terms of their depth throughout those middling teams in that sort of position in the table. They've got a lot of players, just like they did last year. But yeah, they are going to be without Taiwo Awoniyi, Callum Hudson-Odoi, and Divock Origi. So Chris Wood will be starting in this game here. Anthony Elanga is doubtful because of an illness, and Steve Cooper hinted that he may not be fit enough to start. So yeah, they are missing a lot of their key players, a lot of their threats going forward in Awoniyi, Hudson-Odoi, and Anthony Elanga. And someone who probably written into the stars to score in Divock Origi isn't going to be fit for this game either. So I've gone for a 3-1 Liverpool win. Probably should have gone 3-0, but I've gone for 3-1. And that's my prediction there. Liverpool, scary going forward. And they've got a favourable run of fixtures now up until that Manchester City game. And if they can keep the points rolling, keep going, hey, Liverpool are in this title fight. That is for sure. That is definite. And Jurgen Klopp what a manager! You know what? Brilliant manager into terms of what he's doing here and how he can, like Liverpool have had their down seasons last year, and then I remember one during COVID, injuries and the midfield problems that they had. But he's rejuvenated that midfield going forward again. Scary. So yeah, Liverpool definitely in the title hunt for sure. Next game, Chelsea versus Brentford. This is the first game. Well, it's not the first game of the weekend. It's the first game on Saturday. It's the 12:30 kickoff. Chelsea, off the back of that 2-2 draw against Arsenal, there will be pleased with their performance, not with the result, because I'm sure they believe, and I believe as an Arsenal fan, that their performance was good enough for the win. But those errors from the error from Robert Sanchez and a quality goal from Arsenal, but a lapse in concentration from Malo Gusto at the back post dropped 2 points for Chelsea as they bottled it in that game. But they are still at home for this one here against Brentford, where in a game they don't really have a good record against Brentford. I remember the first season, the last 4-1. And then did they lose last year against Brentford? I'm not too sure. Don't have that stat to hand. But yeah, they definitely didn't win last year. In team news regarding Chelsea, Nico Jackson could return to the starting lineup, but Mauricio Pochettino says Reece James will begin on the bench. So he's going to slowly bed in Reece James. So Malo Gusto looks like he will keep his place, which I might have to sort this thing out in my team before 6:30 as I'm recording this. But yeah, Armando Broja, Chukwemeka, Chilwell, Nkunku, Chalaba, Lavia, and Wesley Fofana all remain out. Chelsea's injury list extensive as well. Aaron Hickey should return for the Bees, but I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference. As I see Chelsea trying to build on this, and will grab a 2-0 win. Chelsea have looked more impressive against Liverpool and Arsenal, against the bigger teams, and they have been at Stamford Bridge against teams that sit in a lower block and are defensively well organized. They do look a little bit more exposed because Chelsea's issues in scoring goals and their attack, and they create a lot of chances. They just don't have that clinical edge or that sharpness from their attackers to put it into the back of the net. But I think they should win this one here against Brentford, who have not had a brilliant. I mean, it's hard to really judge Brentford because they're sitting in 14th. They have got quite a few injuries, missing Ivan Toney, lost David Raya, big players that they've missed right there. But yeah, not as impressive as they have been in previous seasons. But yeah, they'll stay in the Premier League. I'm sure of that. I'm sure, but you never know. I'm sure of it. So 2-0 Chelsea is what I've gone for here. Newcastle versus Wolves, the 5:30 kickoff, and Newcastle are away to Wolverhampton Wanderers. It's on my stepdad's birthday. He's going to the game, so he's going to be hoping for a Wolves win. Wolves, can we just talk about Pedro Neto, the man on fire? He had a brilliant performance against Bournemouth last weekend. Struck the bar with an excellent effort and a solo run as well from Pedro Neto. What a player he is. Probably the most informed player in the Premier League right now. I mentioned Julian Alvarez is one of the best in right now. I think, and I'm going to say this, Pedro Neto, most informed and the best player currently on form in the Premier League. He's done it against the likes of Man City, Liverpool, Bournemouth. He's been a threat, creating one of the most chances, one of the best creators in terms of big chances created in the league at the moment. And he will be a thorn in Newcastle's side. And what a brilliant job Gary O'Neill has done in a difficult situation where Julian Lopetegui left because he wasn't happy with Wolves' financial situation, how he had to sell key players and he wasn't able to reinvest in the way that he wanted to. But Gary O'Neill has come into another difficult situation like he did at Bournemouth at that time he took over, and has now steadied the ship as Wolves are sitting in 12th place, and they do look okay. They look better going forward because Neto's on fire. But having the likes of Cunha as a brilliant creator and a chance creator himself, not a brilliant finisher, but Wolves have lacked a brilliant finisher since prime Raul Jimenez. Raul Jimenez got that injury, of course, and when they sold Diogo Jota, who was a streaky player at that point, but yeah, gave them more goals and more of a threat, goal scoring threat at that time under Nuno Espirito Santo. But Newcastle, who up until that Dortmund game, were on fire as well. And Dortmund kind of put a sting in their tail midweek. And I did think Dortmund deserved to win, although Newcastle had their chances, given the fact that they're going away in that sort of atmosphere, that sort of in the Champions League game. We saw what they did against PSG, but Dortmund posed a threat of themselves and could have scored more in that first half, especially, and defended quite well. Nico Schlotterbeck was brilliant. But for Newcastle, they've picked up a few injuries now. Alexander Isak has had a recurrence of his groin injury. Jacob Murphy, who has picked up a bad shoulder injury, came on for 5 minutes and got taken off 5 minutes after coming off the bench against Dortmund, and he looked like a serious shoulder injury there. Good news for Newcastle is Joe Willock has returned, and he could be available for this one, as well as the man who is hot in the news right now in Sandro Tonali. But Eddie Howe says there is a high chance Sandro Tonali will play, as the club have not had a confirmation of his 10-month ban for breaching betting rules has not been imposed yet. Difficult to really see him starting, given the situation, the headlines, the spotlight around him at this moment in time, in a difficult situation for him. But the punishment is rightly so. Footballers can't bet. I know this could spark another conversation, and we'll go into another topic. We might have to do it for one of the watch-alongs that will be returning soon, for sure. Guarantee you on that, and we can talk a bit more about these topics in those sort of streams there. But yeah, he could be fit and available here. Wolves will welcome back Mario Lemina and Nelson Semedo from suspension, which will be huge. And it just shows how good of a job Gary O'Neill has done, missing those sort of players and those key players for Wolves in the last fixture against Bournemouth, but still able to grab the win away from home there. In terms of this fixture, though, I think it's going to end in a 1-1 draw. Wolverhampton Wanderers, that's a good result for them. For Newcastle, who have aspirations of finishing within the Champions League places. Got serious competition at this moment in time as well, and competition could rise again if Man United kick on, if they're like Chelsea kick on. It'll make it even more of a dogfight for them top 4, 5-ish positions, depending on how English teams do in Europe. So don't you think that's quite mad? The fact that English teams, if you're like in 6th, 7th place and you think that you could finish in 5th, you'll be hoping that your rivals like Arsenal, Man City, Newcastle, will finish in the top. Arsenal. Who else is in the Champions League? You got Arsenal, Man City, Newcastle, and Man United. Sorry, I forgot. How do I forget about that? You'd be hoping that they go far, not necessarily win it, the competition, but go far to prop the Premier League up in the UEFA coefficient rankings, which allows us to get that 5th spot open. That's weird. It's a weird situation to be in. Hopefully, my team's not going to be involved in that. I'm trying to look for the title. I'm trying to look at that. Long gone are the days of Arsenal trying to finish in the Champions League. It doesn't feel that long ago at all. And you never know in football. In football, Clive always says it, you never arrive. But yeah, Wolves 1, Newcastle 1 right there. And Wolves keep marching on and take points in a game. I think they deserve to take points in a big game. Their performances have shown it. Man United, they were very good for the whole game. Liverpool, very good in the first half, kind of lost their energy a bit, and they took the 3 points against Manchester City. Do it again. Grab a point again at home to Newcastle, which will be a tough place to go this season. I do think the Molineux will be. Let's move on now. Let's quickly go through the next fixtures. This one's on Sunday. West Ham versus Everton. We'll really talk about the away side here, who look like they could be having their 12-point deduction imposed on them, which for one charge, I mean, again, a bit like Sandro Tonali, you can't criticize the punishment in this isolated incident. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, how Chelsea have been operating and that Manchester City have 115 charges on them, and this one seems to have come fairly quickly and a harsh punishment for that. And you know already that Chelsea have been able to find loopholes around these financial fair play things, and they had one transfer ban throughout that, and they weren't impacted on their position in that league in terms of points. Man City are still being under investigation regarding that as well, of course. Well, it's not being under investigation. It's been charged, but yeah, it's going to take a while for it to obviously process if they are punished for those as well. But yeah, it doesn't seem really fair on Everton for that when you look at the other teams, and it will have a detrimental impact on them more than it would if it happened to a Chelsea or a Manchester City, because they could be going down. They're already in that relegation dogfight, even with some decent performances, but 12 points would take them onto -5, which looks like that they would go down with that unless they had a great escape. But they just don't seem like they have that sort of quality. West Ham faced a battering at Aston Villa last week, which is disappointing for David Moyes and their side. Bit of a mixed start for West Ham, sitting in ninth with 14 points. Had a good start to the season, kind of tailed off a little bit in this fixture here in the last couple of weeks. They lost to Olympiacos last week as well, on Thursday, sorry. So yeah, it isn't great at the moment for West Ham, but I do think that they will grab the win here, and I've gone for a 3-1 West Ham win. Jared Bowen on fire, and he's Danny Dyer. You know the rest. I do think Jared Bowen will grab a goal here. In the next fixture, Aston Villa against Luton Town. Luton Town, fair play to them. Great comeback against Nottingham Forest, but the focus has to be on Aston Villa, because what a start to the season they're having. Sitting in fifth place, 19 points, 1 point behind Liverpool, 2 points behind Arsenal, 4 points behind the top against in Tottenham. Aston Villa have had a fantastic start to the season, even after their first game, which was against Newcastle in that 5-1 defeat, which wasn't really a 5-1 game, of course, because Aston Villa had their chances as well. But yeah, Newcastle were clinical in that game there and really took advantage of Aston Villa's defensive woes and injuries in that fixture. But apart from that, Aston Villa going forward, my word, Ollie Watkins, ridiculous form. He might be the contender for the most informed player in the Premier League at the moment. The likes of John McGinn, ridiculous. Douglas Luiz, showing why Arsenal and Liverpool as well were really interested in the player just 12 months ago, before he signed that contract, a new extension at Aston Villa. Unai Emery is cooking, and he's doing a fantastic job so far with Aston Villa, who have spent a lot of money. And their owners have shown the ambition to really kick Aston Villa on and compete for the big places in Europe. And I'm not just talking about Conference League or Europa League. They are looking to get into that Champions League places. Look at the signings they made. Moussa Diaby, one of the top wingers in and around Europe last year, able to bring him to Aston Villa, stave off interest from Saudi Arabia and stave off all of the millions and billions potentially that was millions for sure that they would have thrown in Moussa Diaby's way. But he saw Unai Emery and the club were able to sell the ambition, the direction that they're going in, and really make it an attractive move for the Frenchman, as well as signing Spanish international Pau Torres in there as well, and adding in there with a free signing Yuri Tielemans, not a great start, but Zaniolo, you know what I mean? Like, these are some big names in and around Europe here, and internationals for their respective countries. Serious players, and as well as a manager of Unai Emery's pedigree and his European track record and the clubs that he's managed of late as well. So, Aston Villa could be doing something right here. So yeah, let's wait and see with Aston Villa this season. But I think they could be knocking on those doors for Europa League place, Champions League, again, with the strength of Chelsea. If Man United click into gear, Newcastle might be a bit too much, but definitely could be. You know what? They could be finishing in around 6th or 7th. 6th would be the highest, I do believe, for Aston Villa. But 7th for sure. But they are sitting in 5th right now. And we kind of have to assess Aston Villa as the season goes on and their ambitions. But at the moment, they're rolling. And I do think they're going to continue with that role at Villa Park against Luton. 3-1 win. Luton, they haven't performed too badly, haven't quite got the results, but Aston Villa definitely to grab the win here. Who knows? Premier League, you've seen crazy stuff before, but Aston Villa just seem too good at the moment, and their attack is scintillating. Hey, I'm saying it now. Aston Villa's attack has been better than Arsenal's this season, and that's a fact. I think with the amount of goals that they've scored, both teams on 10 goals and goal difference of 10 this year. Aston Villa, I don't even know the stats if they scored more. Sure, they have. Arsenal, I'm sure they have scored more than Arsenal, to be fair. But yeah, fair play to Unai Emery and Aston Villa. AFC Bournemouth, so this is our penultimate game, and this is a relegation 6-pointer. Huge game for Bournemouth and Burnley here, and it does seem like both managers, Andoni Iraola and Vincent Kompany, who going into the season, highly thought of, and the hipster sort of favourite, including me. I'm an Andoni Iraola fan after his work that he's done with Rayo Vallecano, and really getting them into the upper echelons of La Liga, with that sort of budget, that sort of squad. He worked wonders with them there and got them playing really good football. He's not been able to do that at Bournemouth. Injuries, yes, has been a factor. Players, new signings not settling in quite as well due to injuries and coming in at different points, different conditions. Hasn't seemed to implement his ways yet, and it's really taken a hit on them. And both teams are sitting in the relegation zone. Bournemouth in 19th, Burnley in 18th. No wins on the board for Bournemouth, who do have 3 points to their name, and that's because of draws. And with Burnley, did Burnley have a win to their name as well? I'm not even too sure on that. Yeah, they beat Luton. Yeah, they beat Luton. So that's why they are ahead of Bournemouth. But I think this game will end in a draw, which isn't good for either side. And I've gone for a 2-2 draw, high scoring draw. This is the other 3 o'clock kickoff alongside Arsenal. So we've already got 3 o'clock kickoffs this weekend, and not great for the neutral. Not in terms of high quality fixtures, of course. But yeah, I think this one will be interesting, and it's important for both teams they both really want to be staying into the Premier League. Bournemouth, with the investment that they've made, certainly do. I'm sure they were hoping to break into the top half of the table, maybe be on the outskirts of Europe at best, but they're far from that at the moment, and their focus is just about staying into this Premier League at this moment in time. And the same goes for Burnley, but a 2-2 draw doesn't really help both teams with that here. But let's go into the final fixture before we get into our predictions table. Brighton at home to Fulham. Brighton with a 2-0 victory against Ajax for their first win in Europe. Great job from Roberto De Zerbi, who's not had a great, again, mixed start to the season, a bit like West Ham and the other teams that have, West Ham and Brighton in the Europa League have had that sort of mixed start, and it has taken in a toll on their squad in the early stage of the season. Brighton have had a few injuries to no Estupiñán, no Tariq Lamptey, and Solly March picked up a big knee injury as well. So it's gutting for Solly March. But Ansu Fati's really seemed like he's taken to life in the Premier League now. At Brighton, because he scored against Ajax, he scored against Man City last weekend. And after a poor first half against Man City, they looked a lot more threatening. Matoma returning back to his best, I believe, and he's a threat constantly. He was brilliant against Liverpool, but he was a threat against Man City as well. And they do have some favourable fixtures now going into the second half of this. Going the second half, going into the international break. Sorry, you can tell it's getting long. I'm not being quite at my brilliant best, at my sharp best. I do apologise, but yeah, I do think that they will grab the win against Fulham. Fulham, again, they are sitting in mid-table, 13th at this moment in time. Picked up wins against Sheffield United. I predicted them to go down. I think that they'll stay up because they just seem to grab the wins against teams that they that are running around them. They seem to grab the points in those scenarios. And yeah, But in this, I think this Brighton team starting to gain a bit of confidence. We want to pick up that run of form here. We'll try and grab the win, and it'll be too difficult for them to get that one there. So all the prediction, all the fixtures done. Let me know your thoughts on each game. This was the prediction table last week, with as it looked up until I added the scores, and this is how the prediction table looks now. By the way, before I go into it, there has been changes. Mange is now top of the league with 78 points. And Mange and Moss both overtaken Jacob. Moss is only 1 point behind Mange with 77. And they both had a fantastic week. Both of them picked up 12 points with 2 correct scores. So big up to Mange and Moss there. Paxton also hot on Jacob's tail and only 8 points behind top, who had a very good week himself with 9 points and 1 correct score. Big up to yourself, guys, who had a fantastic week. And me, not a great week at all. I had 6 with 0 correct scores. So I just managed to get 6 out of the 10 results right. So that kind of helped with 0 correct scores, keeping me in and around there, 2 points off packs. Trying to break into that top 4. Call me Aston Villa in that sense. But Mr. 200, you had you're also not too far, 10 points behind. There's a bit of a gap between 5th and 6th with 58 points. Alicia, who sends me the predictions to me myself, but I will put them into the chat. I mean, into the comments as well, so you guys can see. So it's fair. You know what I mean? A lot of you guys are doing that. King, you did have a decent week. This is what I mean about people have missed the start of the season. King missed the start, and he's already climbing up that predictions table ladder. And I expect him to as well, because if you're talking about points per game or points per week, shall I say, King's really good, and he's up there. So yeah, King's doing well for sure. So keep that up, my bro. Wilf and Shay, let me just say, you didn't have a great week. Wilf got 4 points. Shay got 1 point. He did go bold with a lot of his predictions. Did Shay? I remember Paxton having us saying, "Mate, are you feeling okay about that?" I'm not sure if it was Paxton or it might have been someone else. But yeah, now Shay, he's been on fire as well. And in terms of points per week, didn't have a great week here. And Shay came in even later than King. But that bad week, Shay, you was sitting in 3rd for the predictor of the month. But now Pax is in 3rd for predictor of the month. Moss and Mange neck and neck in this predictor of the month. 3 points being the difference. Moss having more correct scores as well, but Mange plowing through, and he's just managing to, even if he's not getting the correct scores, he's getting the results correct, it seems like, and he is sitting top right now. But this weekend is the last weekend for the winner of the predictor of this month through in October. So make sure you get your predictions in. Moss, Mange, Pax isn't too far. A good week for Pax. Could really do something in there. So guys, make sure you do get your predictions in to the chat. I mean, not into the chat, sorry. I'm used to doing this live. Into the comment section. That's what we need to do anyway. That's what you guys do to submit your predictions. Just letting you know as well, Shay, you are in 4th with 18 points as well, with 3 correct scores. King, you're with 15 points and 1 correct score. So King's had a decent month as well. You've had a better month. I'm not involved in the predictor of the month because it only makes sense what I'm going to give myself a prize. I mean, you get it. So, guys, make sure you do get your predictions in last week to be within a chance of winning a prize for this month as well. It's going to be something little. I'm thinking of a gift card of your choice as well. So, yeah. Guys, that wraps up the episode and the Premier League preview show for Game Week 10. Thank you for watching. If you have made it to this far, really do appreciate that, because, yeah, this has been a pre-record, and, I'm sure that you guys are used to me doing a live stream. I haven't been at my brilliant best. I haven't been feeling too great this week, but I'm here, I'm back, and I'm better. So, people, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. Leave your predictions into the comment section. Don't forget to tell a friend as well, and subscribe if you are new. Thank you for joining me, and take care, people. Up the Arsenal. Match reaction will be coming for that one here 2. Take care, people. We're out.